Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meagan Strout, and I am the founder and CEO of Tack Advisors. And today I am joined by Laurel Mintz and Amanda Laurel, both of Fabric BC and Elevate My Brand. And I will share a little bit more about both of them in just a second. But before we get started, while we're having people enter the room, if you're joining us for the first time, I just wanted to quick reiterate what it's like when we're in this webinar format. So the ladies and I cannot see or hear you, but hopefully you can see and hear us. So for some reason you cannot hear me right now, please put it in the chat and let me know so we can troubleshoot. We did have people submit some questions in advance of today's session, but if you have additional questions for both Laurel and Amanda as this goes on, feel free to throw them in the Q&A in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it. We should have some time at the end for additional questions. So that's pretty much the preamble. I'll go ahead and quick introduce Laurel and Amanda. Laurel and I met, I think it was back in March or April through this
On the boat.
on a cruise for entrepreneurs, which was so much fun. We got to sit next to each other at dinner and immediately hit it off. And I think she's just the most amazing, badass female executive. And when we were chatting, she told me about her amazing EA, now chief of staff, when we were talking about what I do. And I just, don't always get the opportunity to have an exec and their support professional join us for these conversations. And Laurel immediately jumped in and was like, I would love to talk about what it's like because Amanda's amazing. And it's been so great for me in my career. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about that today. So Laurel is the founder first of Elevate My Brand, which is a award-winning marketing agency. They've worked with amazing CPG and tech companies, including Facebook. And she's also now the founder and general partner of Fabric VC, that invests in a lot of CPG-related startups and women-owned organizations, if I remember correctly, which I think is amazing. We need more female founders getting, funding. And then Amanda has over a decade of EA experience, which we're definitely going to talk about a little bit more. She started out as Laurel's executive assistant and is now her chief of staff. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about what that journey has looked like. So thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited. Yay. All right. So why don't we start by just like how this all came to be? So Laurel, tell me a little bit more about your background as far as working with executive assistants in the past over your, amazing career building these two companies. Had you had EAs before, Amanda, or was she your first?
I've had very many of them. Some great, some not so great. I will tell you, a lot of them are very excited to work with a strong female CEO. And then they work with me and they're like, you're always mad at me. I don't understand. And it's one of the things that Amanda always says, like, nobody's mad at you. It's one of her favorite lines, actually. And when Amanda came to me, it was just like heaven on earth. We're just the perfect fit. She is a career executive assistant and now chief of staff. And I think that makes an absolutely massive difference when hiring for the role. And so I've been very lucky that every person that I've hired in this role really has been better than the last. I've been very nervous every time an EA has left. The one before her was really good, but Amanda's certainly the best I've ever had.
That's amazing. And Amanda, tell me about your experience working with executives, as you've been doing this for a decade or so, but you haven't been with Laurel that long. So tell me about previous execs you've supported and what that has looked like.
Of course. Well, executive assistant is just kind of a job I kind of fell into literally. I was working in Hollywood for probably 9 years, and that's a whole other beast of a situation. But they're always short-staffed, and they ran out of people. So all of a sudden, I was the executive assistant, and then I realized I kind of have a knack for it. And things happen, and we're here now, and now I'm with Laurel, and I am not even lying when I say that she is my favorite executive I have assisted. She has a good head on her shoulders, and I can't say that for all executives. I don't want to say mean things, but like some are better than others, and Laurel is on the good side. Hollywood,
Not like I pay her to say that or anything.
No.
Well, you pay me, but not to say that.
Yeah.
But no, Hollywood's just wild. So having this relationship with Laurel is really a godsend because she's smart, she's an incredible businesswoman, she's an incredible leader, and genuinely cares about my well-being as well. So I think that's a differentiating factor.
Well, tell me a little bit about if there is there any kind of common threads between, the people you've worked with, work style wise, communication style wise, that you think like you've seen in Laurel that for people who are maybe looking for a new role, looking to find a great next executive partnership really stood out for you either in the interview process or like working with her now?
Well, as an executive assistant, if you're looking for a very particular person to assist, you have to get along with them first and foremost. Like Laurel was saying, no one is mad at you. You have to be able to answer direct questions. Like if someone says, hey, is this done? They just want to know if it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, have a thicker skin. Second of all, in particular, it's kind of just it's an ebb and flow. It's a vibe. It's kind of a je ne sais quoi. You don't really have a name for it, but you're going to know if you suit each other, essentially. Like I'm using this in a nice way. Chaos is a kind of a thread through everything, but that's just business. And it's my job to make the chaos manageable. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the through thread, even though it doesn't sound nice, but it's what it is.
Yeah. So you're good at working in chaotic startup type of environments, and you're seeing that. And I'm sure like when you're starting a new company, because you were with Laurel before she started Fabric, right? And then that has since, so you've seen like, or was Fabric already up and
Right
running?
around the same-ish time. I think you started it, but it picked up.
It's
Early
really
days.
in the early days. So you've really seen, what was already an established company with Elevate, and now are getting to see what that's like in helping build Fabric with her, which I think is so cool. So how did you two find each other? Laurel, how did you, identify and interview, and what did that process look like to get Amanda?
My old EA found my new EA. So my old EA was wonderful, but never wanted to be a lifetime EA. She wanted to be in Hollywood. So she took the opposite route Amanda did, flip-flop. And I was so nervous. But one of the things that I had always done was I had my EAs create handbooks about me, which whenever I tell that to other executives in my kind of world, they're like, that's so smart, or that's so maniacal. I get both sides of it. And I'm like, it's not about ego, it's about structure. It's about having process. So like, if I'm in Hollywood or West Hollywood or Santa Monica, here are the like 5 restaurants that I really like, so that you don't have to think about it, right? Or here's like, again, here's my nail salon, here's my hair salon, here's my places that I need to go to. Here are my all the things, like just the structure and the operational processes that run my life and run my business, right? So she had that in place and put it on, I think it was on Indeed, right, Amanda?
Yeah, I found it. To find the job posting, it was on Indeed. I met with your previous assistant first. Honestly, she was great. Like, it was kind of like she had given her 2 weeks notice type of thing, but I was really fortunate.
Of course.
I was fortunate that like her second week, her last week, I had already been hired and I was able to like really train with her and kind of learn the ropes firsthand. And I've never got that before. Usually it's just always like, here you go, start running. So it was really nice to have that. Also, Laurel's just like genuinely kind of easy to deal with.
I was like, sure, yeah.
Sure, yeah. No, she is. I say that with love. You're very easy. Like nothing's ever like catastrophe with you, essentially. So if I make a mistake, you're like, okay, well, we can fix it. So I think it's a calm thing. But the interview process, I think, is really important in general when finding this like partnership here, because like obviously I have a resume, you've seen what I can do, and the work is the work. Like admin work like is kind of the same across the board. It's not really the deciding factor. The deciding factor is like, do we get along? Is the vibe right? Like a vibe check.
Mm-hmm.
And Laurel and we met. We kind of instantly get along. Laurel's a social butterfly. She gets along with everyone. But for me, we talked wine. To be honest, Laurel swore in the interview, and I was like, she's a real one. Like, we're gonna get along.
That's
Yeah, I think the layered, so Erin, my previous EA, was able to like sit side by side with Amanda and onboard her. So the onboarding process, which I think is a step after the interview process, which we kind of got ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I think Erin has such a good sense. She'd been with me for, I think, 2.5 years at that point, maybe 3 years at that point. Yeah, around that. But my assistants usually lasted about 2 years. And then they were like, okay, I'm ready to move on to my next thing. They were very respectful, and then they wanted to move on. And so she had a really good sense of who I was as a human. I think, to Amanda's point, like, I'm a pretty kind person, and she wanted to make sure that she rolled off the account or the job in a kind way as well. And because of her knowing deeply who I was, because she ran my life, and that's what a good EA does, she knew immediately who would be a right fit and who wouldn't be a right fit. So she was not going to bring me anyone who wasn't Amanda quality.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so Amanda's kind of aha, or one of the things that stood out was like, okay, she's real. She swore in the interview. Like, we got a good vibe. Did you have an aha moment too when you met Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a vibe person. Like, by the time, and we do this when we hire at any role at Elevate or at Fabric, when they get to me, it's literally only a vibe check. Like, I'm not the details in the mud kind of person. I let my team handle that. Like Amanda said, the resume speaks for itself. By the time you get to me for any role responsibility, it's, do I want to have a cocktail with you? Is it like, are we going to be homies kind of thing, right? Like, it's a total vibe check moment. And I'm a really good empath person, and I can sense that from you in 30 seconds. And then it's just like, get on the job, and can you do the work? And I can sense that in a week. Like, I can really sense it in a day, honestly. Like, did we get this shit done? Right? Period, full stop.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Can I have a cocktail with you? I was part of an AMA with an executive months ago, and that was one of the things he said is, you know, can I sit and have a beer with this person? And so, like, even if you don't drink, can I have a mocktail with this person? Can I break bread with this person? Is this somebody that I want to be around? And I think that that is so important, right? Like, having that chemistry fit in so many ways is probably the most important thing. I do want to go back to one thing that you mentioned, because I work with executives who work with EAs at all levels, chiefs of staff at all levels, people who are just getting the role and don't know if this is what they want to do forever, and people who are career EAs, EA chiefs of staff like Amanda. So you mentioned that really been like a huge game changer for you is having Amanda now who wants to do this and like is a lifer. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, what's been kind of the biggest difference in having somebody like Amanda who's a lifer in this role?
Well, first of all, that we are like soulmates. And to me, honestly, the fact that our names are the same is wild.
It's
like,
kind of funny.
I would say, back to your original question, that was like such an aha moment. I was like, obviously this is supposed to be my partner. Like, hello, that's just so obvious. Like, the universe is like playing a funny little joke on us, right? Hello.
And EMB's birthday is my birthday.
Also that.
Wait,
I know,
whose birthday?
Yeah.
Your birthday? You guys have the same birthday?
No. EMB, the day it was founded, was my birthday.
Oh, no way.
Like, we have birthdays every year together.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's just like a lot of wild coincidences. But for me as a founder, we always have this like nagging voice in the back of our heads. Like, when are the key people in our business lives going to leave us? Right? Like, when is the other shoe going to drop? And so I wake up at 4 a.m, panicked about things all the time. And I don't feel that way about Amanda ever, because I know that as long as I am super respectful of her and I treat her right and the company is growing and she's happy, that I don't have to worry about that, barring some other catastrophe of life, right? And so it's just one less thing that I don't have to wake up panicked about in life, which is like, it's actually one of the biggest things, because the truth is she's the boss, not me. Not me. Like, honestly, it always amazes me when people are shitty to their EAs or their chiefs of staff. Like, what, are you crazy? She could blow up your shit in a hot second. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Like they think I'm not going to immediately forward a mean email to Laurel and be like, what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Amanda is my everything, honestly.
Yeah.
She's my work wife for sure.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's so amazing. And I think, you know, turnover in an executive office in general is just so catastrophic. You know, going back to the point you made about that you have this executive handbook, you know, some people call like how to work with me documents or like your, you know, dossier. I think it's so important. And the fact that you know, more EAs don't do it, like it's something that's like a key thing. You know, Amanda, you mentioned the nice thing about when you started an onboard in this role, you had some transition, right? You had somebody to help, and you also have this handbook. But I would say 90% of the people that I work with when they're starting a new job are truly starting from scratch with an executive, and they're the ones that have to do this information gathering, going through preferences, going through, you know, likes and dislikes, how they want their time spent, how they want to preserve energy. And it's just so much nicer if you can have your EA or chief of staff come in with that institutional knowledge already documented somewhere so that you can just hit the ground running. They can read it in their own time. They can back into the calendar, look and see where patterns are, and then just ask a few clarifying questions. So I'm thrilled that you already were doing that. And I think that's awesome.
We're a
Okay.
process team on all sides, like operational processes are everything. And it was one of the hardest things for me because I'm like big picture person. And as soon as like we got everything down to those operational processes, like everything just works so much smoother for everyone. And I hate it and I fought it so hard. And then once it was there, I was like, oh, this makes my life so much easier. Got it. Okay, fine.
Okay, fine. This is great. That's
Yeah, I was saying that
amazing.
earlier. This is the first time I came into a job with instructions. Like I've been the one writing the book. Like if I've left a previous job, like when he says he wants that salad, it means this.
Yeah.
Like it's been me writing the book for the next person, but I've never had a book going in, so it was quite nice.
Amanda knows like any salad, like God forbid there's cilantro or mint on anything, she will murder you.
Well, murder's a strong word, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
will ruin your day.
Yeah. Amazing. And so tell me about how your relationship and also the role has evolved over the past few years, because you've been in the position for how long now, Amanda?
Um, in a couple weeks, it will be 2.5 years.
Okay. And so you started out with the title executive assistant, now you're chief of staff. How has that changed and what has that looked like over the past 2.5 years?
Well, to be honest, the title has changed, but I'm kind of doing the same things if I'm being honest. Nothing really has joined. I think it's kind of like an everyday thing where there's always something new. So I think that's happened a lot with like executive assistant positions because usually your title will change to like office manager or something eventually. And you're like, I'm doing all the same things, but under a different title. So I haven't really noticed necessarily a difference besides people probably take me a little bit more seriously in emails now when it says chief of staff.
Well, you also got a raise, and I
Well,
think
yeah.
Fabric ramped really quickly. So I would say there's more pressure on you for sure too. So I think in your brain, probably things didn't change, but I think the pressure on you probably has, to be really fair, for your roles and responsibilities.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
I guess it's a bit more big league now, but
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's just a smooth transition, we'll say.
Well,
it's
you
not like it's
handle it with grace for sure.
good. Yeah. So well, the thing is like, yeah, to the point that you mentioned, Laurel, like Fabric has been rapidly growing. You're really stretching across both of those companies now. Um, I'm curious to know because I've also run two companies simultaneously and had a chief of staff who supported me across both of those companies. How do you help sort of prioritize and manage Laurel's time and your time when you're being stretched across two brands?
Take it one day at a time. Laurel helps me do this because I have a tendency to go like, like there's so many things going on. Laurel's like, it's gonna be there tomorrow. Calm down. And I'm like, okay, usually it's the other way around, but I do appreciate that. But essentially it's just do what you can in one day. Unless you're literally curing cancer, you're not curing cancer. It's gonna be there the next day. Also just finding an organizational system that works for you because everyone's different. People have different like systems that work for them. I'm not going to say which one's the best. Personally, I like digital ones because there's a lot of like task tracker software things that like it'll literally just give me a list of everything I have to do today.
Mhm.
And then I know all of them and I can like assign priorities to them. So for me, I just need like a list and I'll get it done. So I think that answers it. I
What
went
is
off
the
topic. What was the
system?
original question?
I don't even remember now, if I'm being totally honest. How are you stretching and like managing
Oh,
your time across both companies?
one day at a time and staying as organized as possible.
Yeah.
And making sure, I know I like a spreadsheet, I like a calendar, I
Mhm.
like lists. So for me, it comes down to that basically.
Is there a specific tool you're using, or are you using just like a Google Sheet or?
We use Google Sheets as well. One thing that Laurel and I have, we have a shared Google Doc where we
Mhm.
could just put all of the things we're working on and like cross them off, talk about them in our meetings. So it kind of keeps us both on the same page with everything.
Yeah.
We have two. We have another one that's just like meetings, what to do afterward, because I'm not in the meeting. Laurel puts down a few notes. I take it from there, kind of a thing.
Got it.
That way I also have to ask her 5,000 questions a day, which is annoying for anybody.
Yeah.
So
On the point of communication, how often do you guys meet and communicate? Do you have like a standing sync once a week, or are you just kind of like asynchronously chatting, all throughout the week? Tell me more about that.
well, we're on Slack all week, so I think we Slack every day about things. We also have a specific, we call it a productivity sprint for like an hour every week. It kind of moves around depending on what's going on that week. But we just sit there and we go through our shared lists. Laurel goes through whatever email she has open that she is wondering what happened next. We just kind of get it all out in this one period. And I think it's really useful to set aside a very particular block of time just to like knock it all out.
Yeah, I love that. Anything
We
you'd add to that,
also,
Laurel?
yeah,
Yeah.
we also started doing half day check-ins on, we're doing those on a quarterly now, Amanda?
I was going to ask you about that actually, because we were doing it on a monthly
We're
basis.
doing them on
Like,
a quarter. I think we're doing them on a quarterly now because we got through the, so the sheet that we started doing was Amanda's idea. And I realized that we hadn't gone back to the beginning and gone from the bottom up. So we started from the bottom up last quarter and we got about halfway through and we just finished the other half today. So now I want to make sure that we're putting those on consistently to go back like a quarter at a time each quarter to make sure that we're like not letting anything drop through the cracks. So I guess it's just about having specific timeframes to go through each of the platforms that we're on. But it was Amanda's idea to, what she does is she takes all of my meetings from each week, she drops them onto a Google Sheet, and then I put my notes in. So we go through those each quarter now. She's amazing. I mean, Amanda's just amazing. And then we do have platforms. We use Decil Hub, which is a venture specific platform that tracks LPs specifically. And she can literally, we have all of the set emails in there. So I can literally say, hey, I met this person, here's their email. And she can go bloop, and it sends an automated email to them and then puts them into what's it called? An automation.
Mhm.
So that's for like really, really easy.
Yeah.
And then on the Elevate side, we have ClickUp, which
like
Yeah.
an active campaign as
an
well.
active campaign. Yeah, we use a lot of different software so that
Yeah.
we can hopefully make our lives easier.
Yeah. How do you guys like ClickUp, by the way? Because I know like it's like kind of a competitor to Monday.com and Asana and some of these other tools. So like how are you guys using that together?
Cody on our team, who is our operational guru, basically did a full analysis of every single platform, and ClickUp was like, you should see the document that he came back with, and ClickUp was the winner. So you'd have to ask him, but I just said, okay, and here's my credit card. I let the experts do what the experts are good at.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
fairly
great.
user friendly though. Like I think it's easy to pick up. It's pretty clear, like add task, you push the plus button, you know, it's pretty easy. I haven't used Asana or Monday, so I can't really compare, but it seems pretty easy to use. I love a software where I have a homepage that just puts all of my stuff on it. And I'm like, I just want one list. Just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah, it's funny. Amanda gets really anxious when she gets on a new platform. And then like a couple weeks in, she'll like either Slack me or we'll be in our meeting and she'll be like, I just made that platform my bitch. Hilarious. She has this
Russell
like
Hub in particular, because that
moment.
was
Yeah.
wild to start
Yeah.
with.
She has these moments where she like gets this clarity and she's like, I made it my bitch. I get it now. It's really fun.
Love
She's
that.
done it on 3 platforms. Like she has to like freak out about it. And then she like gets this like very clear moment. And she's like, I get it now.
I
Yeah.
need to take like a few hours to like get in there because I'm a very tactile kind of learner. Like I need to do it to learn it. So like I have to just get in there and poke buttons and hope for the best. And then usually once it clicks, I'm like, it's my bitch now.
Yeah.
Rain
Yeah.
Man's
Yeah.
it.
No, but remind me, are you two working remotely for the most part? And then, okay, so you are. And then do you, and if so, how often do you physically see each other in person? And did that change from the beginning of your working relationship to now, or has it always been pretty much the same?
We had an office before the pandemic just up the street. It was so pretty. We built it from the ground up. And then the pandemic happened and the team was like, we don't want to go back. We don't care. And I said, but it's so pretty. And they said, we don't care. And I said, okay, fine. So now everyone is remote and dispersed, which means we get to hire great talent all around the country. So that's awesome. We fly in the team biannually for an all hands, which is really fantastic so that everyone has bonding moments. And then half of the team is here in LA. So we do get to them all together once a quarter at the very least. And then I do one-on-ones with anyone who's in LA as well. Amanda and I get together, I'd say like once a month, once every other month or so. So we do have some FaceTime. And then I shoot content with my content team also about once a quarter. So I can see them pretty often. I'm sure they see me enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen any difference? Because I know this is actually like a hot topic right now, because I think both Amazon and who was it, Microsoft now just made an announcement everybody has to go back into the office 5 days a week, which is fascinating. And now that the team is, you made a great point, right? We're a fully remote company too at Tack, and it gives us the ability to hire from anywhere in the country, really be able to tap great talent. Sometimes it can be hard. LA is not a cheap place to live. San Francisco is not a cheap place to live. And it gives us the ability to really be able to tap a lot of great people. But have you seen a change in the way your team works together now that you're remote, or like productivity change now that your team is remote versus when you're in person? No.
No, it's just me. I'm the old in the group and I want my little fingers on everybody, but I'm the only extrovert in the group. So
yeah. Except, well, Amanda, you're kind of an extrovert, or are you like an introverted extrovert?
I feel like I'm an extrovert, but I'm a homebody. So
yeah.
I mean, I commuted for like a decade of my life. And I'm like, never again. I don't want to spend like 2 to 3 hours in a car every day. Also, it's just really nice to work from home. Like, it's just like a sense of freedom, I guess, because if I need to take some towels out of the dryer, I can take 5 minutes and do that, and that will get all my work done. So for me, I feel like I get to live my life more as more of a work-life balance, even though all of my work in life is happening in the same spot. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, cool.
Hate it. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Look, I would like for it to be part-time togetherness more, but I respect the desire and the needs of the team. And that overrules it for sure.
Yeah. So the once a month or so that you do spend time together, are you focusing on something different during that time together that you would do other than when you're syncing throughout the week? Like, what do those times together usually look like?
Usually we will be like here working, or we'll be doing content, or most of the time when I'm doing one-on-ones, it's individually. Like I'll take Cody out for dinner or Gigi out, and it's just bonding time, just so that we can have, I just need the connection.
Yeah. Need to be with your people. I get that. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, well, I want to get into some questions that came in originally from, that were submitted. So I'm curious to know, one of the things that came through is, how do you build a successful partnership with each other outside of sending like a weekly recap or building a executive handbook or doing sort of meaningful one-on-ones? What has that looked like for the two of you?
Well, I think Laurel and I, besides like our personalities being very complementary, which is, I think, the big X factor here, if I'm going to go outside of personality, I think the biggest thing that helps us stay on the same track and like together and we're getting everything done is all of our organizational background. Like we have our Google Docs, we have all of these systems. And also as an executive assistant for many years, when in doubt, just ask. Like if I'm not sure what the priority is, just ask. So, and Laurel is like, we'll just say yes or no, and then I move on. And I don't have to expect like a long, like, Amanda, you're doing such a good job. And like, this is the priority. She just says yes or no, and I move on. So again, thicker skin, no one's mad at you.
Yeah.
So I think having access via Slack is really useful. So yeah, if I have something I know I need immediately, I can Slack her. If it's something that's not immediate, I put it in our shared doc and we'll get to it.
Mhm.
I would say on top of that, like the human element is really important. I think we've really learned a lot about each other as people. And there's just, again, I think you can tell from the conversation, there's just a mutual respect there. And the human piece comes first. Like we can both tell if someone's not having a good day. We really know what's happening in each other's personal lives and we show up for each other that way too. So it's not ever just business for us.
Yeah.
Like my dad went in for some heart stuff and Amanda knew that. And she asked, of course, like how he was and how I was doing. And I think that that's a really rare quality in a business world, right? Is having someone that knows and how to show up for you professionally and personally. And it's hard for me to be vulnerable in that way, right? And so to be able to have someone that can see that is really helpful. And I don't know, Amanda's just a really special person. Like she, for my birthday, picked a perfume for me. And I was like, there is no way that this is going to be a scent that I'm going to keep. Like nobody can buy me anything. This is going to be terrible. And it is the only perfume I wear. Like that is, I can't even tell you, like, it's just magic. We just have this magical partnership in every way.
Yeah, I love that. You bring up an interesting point. I talk to EAs and chiefs of staff all the time, and I come from a place, and I think it's because of how I've partnered with my own EPAs and chiefs of staff over the years. Is that like I think you have to be a whole human to be able to be successful, right? Like they're really you don't your personal life doesn't stop the moment that you start at work and then end when you clock out. Although I think when you're a founder, you'd probably agree with me on this, Laurel. Like you never really clock out. I also wake up at 3 a.m, panicked about stuff. And then I write it down and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to, get back to this the next morning. Right. So I don't think when you're a founder, it ever really stops. But, what are your thoughts, on that blend of business and personal and purchasing gifts or doing something nice for a family member? Because I've definitely talked to EAs who are like, I do not want to do anything personal.
I could kind of speak to that a bit. When you're an EA and like if you're looking for a job and then you get interviewed and they're like, we're like a family, that is a red flag because people take advantage of family. They don't take advantage of business partners. Well, they do, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's a thing about having boundaries as well. Like Laurel respects my boundaries, I respect hers. Like if she's on vacation, if I don't need her, I don't bother her. If it's like after hours, Laurel's at an event, she's meeting people, she's putting all of the things in Slack, but she'll schedule it to send all at 9 a.m. So then I get like 17 Slacks at 9 a.m. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it's still just respecting my boundaries, my time, because, I don't need to be getting messages at 9 o'clock at night. So
Yeah.
I think it's a mutual respect kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think that that's a lot of it. And we always hate the like, we're a family thing, but we also always say family first. So if there's an emergency in your family, or if there's a health issue, or if there's something that needs to take priority, that is absolutely okay. In terms of like gifts and things like that, my love language is gift. And so I gift my team stuff all the time. For birthdays and anniversaries and things like that. We send flowers, we send bottles of liquor, we send gift cards, we send massages, we send all kinds of things. So I love to send and shower my people with things. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. I think love languages, knowing people's love languages in a professional setting is important, right? Your gift. I'm actually 0 on the gift scale, so I'm like, don't send me gifts. It's like I really rely on my EA and chief of staff, like depending on who I'm working with at the time, of like, please remember all of the people in the company's birthdays, anniversaries, like send them a gift card. Like it gives me anxiety. I don't like it. Like I don't even want gifts myself, but I love like acts of service or like quality time. So like getting to like have that time and go out to dinner or like sit and like riff on a project, I think is something that's like really valuable to me. And I remember there was one time a couple of years ago where I was sprinting, I was definitely burnt out. And my former EPA Alexa was like, I'm just going to book you a spa day at the one hotel. This is back when I was living in Miami, because you just need to go sit on a beach and be rubbed by somebody. Like she's like, you just need that time. And she knew that. And I would never think to even do that for myself, because I think when you're a founder, you just grind. And I thought that that was just so kind, and I really appreciated that. And I think, as an EA or chief of staff, kind of knowing like what makes your executive tick and what's valuable to them, and then being able to show up in that way is really, really nice.
Yeah.
An interesting question came in, I think, for you, Laurel. So I'd love to hear more about how you as a founder thinks about their team. Your comment about waiting for the shoe to drop, i.e. a team member leaving, was interesting to hear. We only know what is going on in our minds, and I find it interesting to learn how an executive feels or thinks.
I mean, this is like a loaded question, right? Like, I just think when you're a small team, every person is so critical. And I think especially this is on the agency side and marketing specifically, this is a very fresh wound for me, because we just lost someone that we really liked who had just started with us. And that's why that conversation just came up. So we just trained someone. She was with us 3 months. She was fantastic. She had interviewed at a couple places. Someone came back to her and said 3 months later, after we had already trained her, she was on a bunch of accounts, and said, by the way, we're giving you the job, but you need to let us know today. And it's $30,000 more than we were paying her. So she reached out to us, and she was like, by the way, I'm taking this job. It's not about the money. And I said, really? How much is it paying you? She said $30,000 more. I said, so it's a little bit about the money. That was really why that comment came up. But it's just something you always have to think about, because again, at an agency where there's 8 people, every single person is critical. So I'm just a little bit anxious about that thought process. But we put in an ESOP, which is an employee stock option plan, to solve for that problem, or that concern, I should say. And an ESOP, for those of you that don't know, is an employee stock option plan, which means anyone who's with us at any level past a 4-year timeline gets ownership in the agency. So it doesn't matter if you are a chief of staff or a senior person. If you are with us for an extended period of time, you become an owner of the agency.
I love. Yeah, I think that's right. I think equity is a really great thing to do. Or it's the stock options, depending on how you have it structured. I think that's awesome. And I think I'll sort of add my 2 cents too, because I have a small agency, and we've grown and we've shrunk depending on what's going on. Because the market the past 4.5 years has been absolutely insane. Just like the big companies like Meta and all have grown and they've shrunk. And I think, well, kind of 2 things. I think the family, like we're a family. I saw this interesting article about Netflix, like sometime in the past year, where they say we're not a family, we're a team. Think of us like a sports team, where like everybody's expected to, when you're at like NFL level, everybody's expected to operate at the absolute highest level, and you all have to show up to be able to work as a team to, win the game. But family, it's a little bit different, right? And so, and in a team and like on a sports league, people can be replaced, right? If you stop showing up, you can't replace family. And I think that was also like a really interesting thing that like Netflix mentioned, which I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I think just like you, Laurel, deeply, deeply care about my employees, and I want them to be whole humans. And it's like if one person's gone at a 10-person team, like they're out on vacation for 2 weeks, you feel it. Like everybody else has to pick up the slack, so no balls get dropped. It's very different than a 10,000 person company when one person out of 10,000 people go on vacation for 2 weeks, right? And so like you have to all be operating at 100% and sprinting along and be willing to jump in and be willing to help each other. And that stuff keeps you up at night. Like that keeps you up at night. Money keeps you up at night. And then I was talking to another founder friend of mine recently who actually was also on the boat with us, Laurel. And he was like, when you're a founder, you're just always wondering like what competitor is coming after you or like what's coming next. And I was like, that's not entirely false. Like you are always wondering like, how am I staying fresh? How am I staying new? How are we being competitive so that we can be the best at what we do? And so I think all of those things are things that, I don't know, keep me up at night.
Yes, this is why we drink.
Is it? also not wrong.
But also why you have to have a good attitude about all of this. And to Amanda's point earlier, like we're not curing cancer. Like we can't take it that seriously.
No, absolutely.
But you kind of touched on something as well, that you want your team to be full people. And I really believe that about Laurel as well. And that's what makes her so rare in an executive, that like, my dog had to have surgery the other day and she was like, oh my gosh, how's your dog? Like she would just ask, and like she encourages me to take days off because I don't, which is my own thing. So it's very rare to have an executive who does care and does want their team to be people outside of work too. So I think it's exceptional from a employee's perspective.
Yes, I do publicly shame my team if they don't take their days off.
That's great. That's good. Do you have an unlimited PTO or like a set PTO program, or how does that work?
We have 2 weeks, and nobody ever takes the full 2 weeks. And so they start to like really add up, and I'm like, can't take it with you guys. Like, let's go, come on. And also you can see when people start to hit walls, and I do it too. So like, let's get on it. And my like back office ops person will let me know like, okay, this person's creeping up on their 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay. And then in our all hands meeting, I'm like, all right, Sharia's getting called out today, or Amanda's getting called out today, you know? So, and everyone makes it a joke. And then they're like, all right. And then I'll get a request for time off. So
I mean, of all the things to be called out for, like
that's why I do it publicly. It's kind of like a joke, but it is serious. Mental health is very serious.
Mental health is serious.
We also have a quarterly mental health day that kind of came up on every quarter. We have like a big planning session. It's like everybody's there. We get all into the deep nitty gritty. And it kind of came up in one that everyone's like burnt out. And so our fix for that Laurel was like fully for, was a quarterly mental health day. We kind of stagger it, so not everyone's gone on the same day, but like everyone gets a free day because everyone's mental health is important. So I think that's also great.
That's amazing. Okay, so it's another question that came in. Somebody who's starting a new job in venture capital, and it's been a while since they've started a new role. What advice do you have for learning how to best support an exec that is new to you? And you've supported Amanda, so we'll start with you, a few different execs over the years. And what's the best way to build relationships with EAs at portfolio companies? And I think you guys have a few portcos at Fabric, right? So you're probably interacting with them pretty regularly.
Yeah. Well, first of all, with venture capital, just go in knowing it's a lot, it's hard, and you're going to get through it. There's just no way out but through. Fundraising in particular, it's rough, it's hard, it's a lot of work. Laurel knows. So just know that. No, it's going to be hard going in. It's not going to be a cakewalk. But also a thing that I think Laurel and I have done kind of naturally in our rapport and working relationship is like setting specific milestones, which I think are really important because like you have something to work toward. And also if I know what the end goal is, I can like reverse engineer the steps I need to do it. So I think having set milestones is really important. Also being able to prioritize what's important right now. Like for us, I don't know about every venture capital firm, but I literally checked before this call. We have 2,308 contacts in our database. And these are all people Laurel has talked to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
You're a busy bee.
Yeah, if you don't have like an organizational system set up and you don't know where the priorities are, it's just going to be a big amorphous blob. So take the blob, pick it apart, make it organized is my best advice.
I love that. Okay. So here's something for like getting to know the team and getting integrated into a new team. So we have somebody who's starting in a new role. Both her and her executive are starting at this company sort of simultaneously. So they're both new to the organization, and wanted to know, are there any tips for getting to up to speed at a company together or working with a new team together?
Hmm.
I don't think there's necessarily it's a sucky answer, but there's not really a good one because you're gonna have to figure it out together and what works for you. Like organizational things, for example, like what works for me might not work well for someone else. So I think you're just gonna have to know what you need to do and then reverse engineer it into a system that's going to continually work. And at the beginning, there's going to be growing pains, but eventually you're going to get the system going. I think you just have to build it.
Yeah.
I think there's two answers on that. I think there's the relationship between the two new partners, right? So like what, to Amanda's point, like what works for those two team. And I think we've given you some answers on this call of like what works for us in terms of communication styles and platforms, et cetera. The other thing that I would do is like, I would look within the bigger organization, if it is one, like who's the alpha? Who are the alpha communicator? Like what are the alpha teams within that organization and how do they communicate and what platforms do they use and what's working best within that organization, and then rinse and repeat. I don't think they need to reinvent the wheel. If they can see that there are one or two teams that are just crushing it within that organization, I would follow in their footsteps. And I would have them do informational interviews. I would have the EAs do informationals with the EAs, and I would have the execs do the informationals with the execs to figure out the path forward.
Yeah. I always tell people the first 2 weeks, whenever you start in a new role, to do a learning and listening tour. And it's like meet with as many people as you can meet, whether it's like your, other EAs if you're an EA, or like your execs direct reports, right? And understand what are their pain points. Same with the execs, make sure they're meeting with all of the other execs like at their peer level, who they report to, unless they're a C level, right? And then their direct reports and information gather. I think that's the quickest way to ramp up. And then also, depending on how your organization is structured, like, most companies, especially at a larger level, have agendas for every meeting. And you can go through historical context and say, okay, like what's been going on in these meetings for the past year? Look through those agendas, look at what those priorities are. I think all of those are really great ways to ramp up really quickly, to learn about an organization and what's important to them.
We mandate coffees. Whenever we have a new team member come in, we mandate coffees with every single other person on the team for that very reason.
Yeah.
Like basically get a Zoom on calendar where you sit down for 30 minutes and just chat about who you are outside of work, essentially. So it's kind of a team building exercise as well. And if they have questions about the job. At least my coffee dates has usually not been so work related, if I'm being honest. But it's also important just to get to know who you're working with. And like, I've had people ask me like, what do I do when like another part of our team, Gigi, isn't here? Like who do I ask things to? And I'm like, you can ask me questions. It's okay. Usually it's interns because they're very scared.
Amazing. Well, I think, what's been overwhelming to hear, and people have mentioned it in the chat too, is just like how much clearly, Laurel, you value this role and this partnership and what Amanda has done for you and what she can do for you. One person just put in the chat that, they've been supporting a CEO for 2 years. The CEO just doesn't seemingly want to build a relationship, and it doesn't seem like it's a good fit. So is there anything that you would give advice-wise for this person to either try to, do mouth to mouth on this relationship and revive it? Or is it time to maybe look for a new role?
I mean, 2 years, yikes.
If it hasn't happened yet, I don't think it's going to magically happen.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. And it's also kind of a little bit, as an executive assistant, I'm like a little offended on their behalf, but I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to have like any camaraderie even with me, even if professionally? Like, like people always say don't burn bridges, but sometimes if the bridge goes to crazy town, burn it down. Okay, like you don't need to keep all your bridges.
You see why I love this woman so very much. Like she just has all of the skills and the personality. She is just the whole package.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think to that point, it's I'm like, oh, well, he doesn't know what he's missing. And if he doesn't want a partnership and he just wants somebody to do the job tactically, and you want a partnership, then sometimes you got to go to grow. Right. And
Yes.
so, there are people out there, there are great executives out there who want to have this dynamic that the two of you have. I'm the same way with the people I worked with that have supported me of like, it's a lonely job being a founder. It's a lonely and hard job. There's a lot of stuff you can't share with your team, but when you have like somebody who's a true confidant and a true partner, like that is the only person you have in the company to lean on. And like they like are your person, like you said, like she's your work wife. And so I empathize with you in your situation. I also like feel bad for him because he doesn't know what he's missing out, or them. I guess we didn't say it was a male CEO. I made an assumption that was my fault. But with them, I feel bad for them that they don't see what they're missing.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It
would
feels
say
like the
one,
dating situation where you're with someone and you have all of the things that are a relationship, but they still want to call you their friend.
hmm,
Oh, a
yeah.
situationship.
It's giving fuckboy energy. To be honest. And I'm like, no, we don't do that anymore.
I would say like my question back is like, have you had a really honest conversation about it? That's my only other question. Like, have you been skirting this conversation? That's my only last question is like, did you sit down and have this very direct conversation? This is what I want and need out of this relationship and partnership. Otherwise, I just want to let you know that I will be looking elsewhere. Like maybe it takes a last ditch effort of just letting you know this isn't working for me. Sometimes it takes a really transparent conversation to shock someone into realizing what they're going to miss.
Yeah. Well, also one last thing on this one, as an EA, we're kind of people pleasers by nature. So I've stayed in terrible jobs way longer than I should have. So it's also a matter of knowing your worth. And if you want to have that conversation, you think it's going to be useful, have it. But sometimes it's just, you don't have to keep all your bridges.
Mm.
Especially if you're great at what you do. There's a million people out there that need great EAs. Oh, I have a job for you, actually. The
For
woman
me?
we
Oh,
were,
yeah.
yeah, Trish. I have
Oh,
something for you.
yay. All right. We'll send them my way. We just are closing a few searches. So our
Yes.
bandwidth is freeing up to take on some new roles. So yeah, all right, we'll touch base after this. Thank you. That's the other nice thing. So Laurel is like an amazing networker and just like similar to me, I'm like all about how can I connect you? How can I add value? And I think you're really, really great at that too. Like you have a giving mindset and like a mindset of there's not one pie, there's a million pies, and we all can have a slice, which I think is super helpful and something to look for when you're like working with an executive. I think there's something else that's really great about you. Well, this was so much fun. Anything else the two of you would like to add about what's going on at Fabric or Elevate, or ways that people can follow you? I'm going to obviously send a post-webinar email with this recording. And then I know you have one way for us to get in contact with you for marketing support, but anything else you'd like to share about your organizations?
Let's see. Well, I really believe that executive assistants, chiefs of staffs are the real gatekeepers. So for all of you out there watching and listening, if you represent great executives that you think would be a fit and need our support or need support on the marketing side with Elevate, or might be a great fit in terms of investment opportunities on the Fabric side, please get in touch with us. Amanda is my gatekeeper, so please email her, amanda@fabricvc.com. It's a really challenging fundraising environment right now, but we are doing amazing things, investing only in diverse-led businesses because they return better. So we're really excited about the work that we're doing and for the opportunity. So thank you so very much.
Yeah, amazing. Anything else you'd like to add, Amanda?
Yeah, I don't know. I've already said my best piece of advice to executive assistants was that no one is mad at you. Just remember that. No, if you really can't think of a reason why anyone is mad at you, they're not mad at you. They're mad at something else.
Yeah. And you're just the first person in front
You're
of them.
just there.
You're just there. So you're unfortunately seeing it first. I think that's actually a really great point. So thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you so much.
Wait, I have one more thing.
Okay.
Sorry, one more thing. Everyone deserves an Amanda. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you publicly to Amanda for being so freaking wonderful.
Yay. Yay.
Yay.
So happy for the two. And I mean, people have absolutely loved this webinar. I think this was so valuable. So thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Having us. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.